Yes, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Goodman had requested that I speak to you all about the opioid class action lawsuits, let me put it that way, plural. Several localities in the region have joined in, Roanoke City, Salem, to name a few. There are any number of other localities throughout the Commonwealth, and quite frankly, a whole ton of other localities throughout the country that have joined in with this class action lawsuit against the pharmaceutical companies that produce these opioids. Just last week, the state of Oklahoma settled an opioid lawsuit with Purdue Pharma, one of the larger manufacturers, for $270 million in damages. That was based on their analysis of the costs associated with having to run emergency services to pick up people that are overdosing or having some kind of problem, housing folks in rehab facilities, all kinds of potential costs that a locality may end up having to incur in those types of situations. And so at this point in time, there is rumor out on the street that the big pharmaceutical companies can see the writing on the wall, and there is scuttlebutt, I don't know this to be actual truth, but that one of the potential defensive mechanisms is to file for bankruptcy, which would then preclude any further damages from being awarded. Hence the reason you've seen a lot more localities jumping into the game now, hoping to get their name on a lawsuit filed prior to any such bankruptcy being filed. So then if there is a discharge of that bankruptcy, the localities will at least get something out of that bankruptcy. I am very familiar with, actually very good friends of mine, the two gentlemen out of the Kaufman Knowles law firm back in Norfolk, Virginia Beach area, that are handling this particular class action suit on behalf of a lot of the localities in this region and in the Commonwealth. They have paired up with a larger law firm that is a national law firm. Their proposed retainer agreement essentially would allow a locality to take part in the class action lawsuit. Each locality would not have to pay anything if you lose. If you win, you have to pay some level of your pro rata share of costs, and then they get 25% of the rest. It is a pretty good deal in my estimation, in my opinion, but it's obviously something for you all to consider. I have asked the interim chief to try and pull together some data for you to try and kind of get your arms around what the potential costs have been for the city over the past few years. Obviously, the opioid crisis really kicked into high gear in about 2012. It has steadily gone down because of much more public awareness and those types of things, but certainly it's still an issue that's out there, and it's a cost that was incurred by local governments. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, Mr. Mayor, that Ms. Waddell had provided you all with some data some time ago. I have updated information. I'll pull that stuff together and send that off to you all individually, so you can kind of take a look at what the statistical analyses are. And as soon as I get any information from the interim chief, I can certainly provide that to you as well. Obviously, you don't need to make any decision tonight. I think you probably need to really think about it, consider your options. And if you are so inclined or wish to have further discussion about it, I can certainly get one of the gentlemen from Kaufman Knowles to come up here and give you all a presentation, just like they actually just did Monday night in Halifax County. So quite frankly, they're kind of all around now, and I think everybody's kind of circling the wagons, so to speak. So it's something for you to consider. Just let me know which way you want to go, and I'll make it happen for you.
I'd like to have some more information.
Okay.
The city attorney did also ask information from EMS. We have to pull it by hand. So they're still trying to pull it.
Yeah, it's going to take some time. But the process of pulling that information now will be helpful in ascertaining, if you so choose to join the class action, ascertaining what your damages are. And that's the first hurdle that you have to cross in order to be able to actually file suit, is to show that there is some specific amount of damages. So that kind of information is very useful to have. So hopefully we'll get through that tedious task. But if you do, Mr. Mayor, if you want me to have, try and get somebody up here for your next meeting on next Tuesday night, I certainly can do that.
Y'all want to do that, or you want to wait and see what
Want to wait a month, or?
kind of information we get?
Yeah. Let's see.
Let's look at the information first.
Yeah, let's do that.
That's fine. Not a problem.
Because I have one question along that line. I just threw this in there. And Mark, I'm not disagreeing with what you say about the opioid crisis kind of starting. If it's backing off, how come you see an increase now of offering free Narcan to the public and police departments? If it's dropping off, how come we're giving away drugs to counteract it?
Because of fentanyl.
Yeah, well, that's true, but still, it's
That's
open.
true. There's a lot of, statistical correlations that go along with all of these things. There is one specific fact, and the fact is that the opioid crisis hit hardest in Appalachia.
Yeah.
Okay, and your community is essentially on the cusp of that. So you have to take that into consideration. This was like ground zero for the cause of the problem starting.
Yeah.
So just keep that in mind.
And also Allegheny County has acted to proceed in their participation of the class action lawsuit. And if we chose to do that after we get the information, that would be further support for Allegheny County's position also.
So would Allegheny County's information help us?
See, that's what I was thinking. We have our first due in Allegheny County. Do they get to count those, or do we count because we responded to the emergency?
That was one of the questions that was raised by the interim chief, and he is digging into that to try and find out if we can't double count, obviously. But if they already incorporated the city's numbers, then we can just extract those and just have them for us individually. That would be helpful.
And it's with this law firm that the city attorney referred to. They're working with them.
Okay.
Yeah, because that's one thing that they did do. Their kind of first step was, without charge, is that the firm did an analysis of what all the potential damages were and provided a report to each governing body. So if that's another one of those freebie things that you might want to consider. Hey, let's go ahead and at least try to get that information.
That is my question. If it's free, why not go ahead and do it?
You might as well. I would certainly recommend that you take advantage of trying to get that
I
kind
would
of
go ahead
report
and
done.
do it now, especially since it's free. It ain't gonna cost you nothing.
Mhm.
Win or lose, it's win-win both ways.
It'll cost you 25% if you win.
Yeah. It can't cost you nothing if you lose.
Yeah, if you don't win, you ain't lost nothing
You
either.
have to join the party.
25% of nothing.
Yeah, it's zero is still zero.
At least it used to be when I went to school.
So I could certainly request that of them to try and get that ball rolling. On top of getting you all this other information, but we can certainly start working with them to try and get that going.
I'm going to let Kathy say something. She's been involved with a lot of the things that are going on in the community with opioid addiction.
Just to kind of give you an idea, I work on statistics.
Would you mind coming up here, ma'am? Thank you.
I wasn't planning on speaking on this tonight, but you actually answered a question for me, I think. What I've got here is from 2009 all the way through the first quarter of 2019 of all warrants served in our area from the Sheriff's Department. Him and Jill released that to me. And I was looking at patterns, what's going on in our community with the jails overflowing, the opioid epidemic, kids' mental health issues and that. And I'm trying to see what's the root cause. And in doing that, I wanted to ask you, that's why, what year did the opioid epidemic raise its true head in Allegheny County? Because we had a huge drop in manufacturing, distribution, and sales of all from pills, marijuana, and such. in 2013 and 2014 on warrants served. And also on possession and first offense, those 2 years, we had a huge drop, down to 59 warrants served for 2013 and 43 for 2014. Then in 2016, there was an explosion. 2016, 2017 was awful years. And it looks like just from the first quarter of 2019, we're on track for a 2017 year again, with all this work being done.
Yeah, but
So
that's information you need.
That's the kind of information that we'll need, that's the kind of information that will be analyzed and broken down into its distinct parts and hopefully.
Yeah, see, that's what I was gonna ask
But
the sheriff.
But the reality is, well, as far as I've been able to tell, okay, and I'm no expert at, the opioid crisis, but everything that I've read up to this point suggests that somewhere in the 2011, 2012 time period is when it really became a public health issue. Nationally. Now, from an individual county location, I cannot tell you that.
Yeah,
I
we're the
don't know.
epicenter, as you just said.
Well, I mean,
The Appalachians.
right. I mean, West
And we
Virginia.
are. I mean, I
really
went all the way
is.
back to 1971, from Brooklyn, New York, straight down to Dade in my research, and just trying to pinpoint the root cause.
Right.
What's going on with our babies in our schools, in our elementary schools. That's what I'm looking at. It's a scary situation to me, and I've been looking at economic development being a root cause. But with this, it's frustrating. There are patterns that do pop up. My question for the sheriff tomorrow was going to be, when did the opioid crisis hit? Mainstream awareness, 2016, 2017, question mark. And has there been additional state, federal funding for it? Those are some of my questions for the sheriff, and he's been amazing by opening this up to me.
We're gonna get information from him.
Yeah.
You're gonna get information from the sheriff. That's,
I'll get permission to make copies of this.
If you
So,
would, please, we'd
if
love
you
to
would,
have.
that'd be
Let us
great.
know.
This is more, this is every warrant, whether it was a speeding ticket or what, I broke it down.
Yes, ma'am. Well, anything you would share with us, we would greatly
So
appreciate
we'll-
it.
Yeah, it'd be very
With
helpful.
the community, the county's sitting here working real hard together, and I'm very impressed. And when they'll work with concerned citizen, and let me go through this, it's pretty amazing. Thank you.
thank you.
And
Kathy. You need to
you
take
just
information.
answered in your question about the 16, 17, my personal opinion is just what Josh said there a few minutes ago. I think you seen the big explosion when people realized out there that was doing this type of stuff, that fentanyl was the next best thing coming along. It was easy to access. I mean, rescue squads carry it, use it in their treatment and stuff like that. Well, you had cases of when fentanyl first started hitting the streets. That's not so much here, but in bigger cities, they'd call squads out. You had drug box on their truck and they'd rob them.
I actually had a
While they's on the scene,
breakdown.
just get your drugs out the box,
I actually had a breakdown, whether it's marijuana, meth, shrooms, your different levels and prescription drugs to cough. So this was really thorough, the breakdown, due to the codes that they gave me. So I'm going to politely disagree. But I know there was a derecho, I know that we had, huge floods, I know we've lost businesses, we've gained businesses, and I know there's been a lot of changes in our schools and how we're raising our kids and how we're feeding our kids. So I'm just looking at a root cause.
Kathy, what I've read about that is the amount of overdoses has increased because of the fentanyl because it's so much stronger.
That's-
Let me go ahead and move on with the rest of the agenda. That's